Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Two topics we're going to be covering today. The first one is Donald Trump taking over Memphis, Tennessee with federal troops in an attempt to secure more power. And then number two, Jeffrey Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. For the first topic, Donald Trump signed an executive order yesterday vowing to send federal forces to Memphis, Tennessee. The reason being crime, according to Donald Trump. This is the same excuse he's used for other deployments in cities such as Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. The excuse is that there is rampant crime and that only sending in federal troops will clean up the cities. What we know, though, is that that is an absolute lie. It's a farce. The crime in these cities is not at the level which you would need to deploy federal forces. But that doesn't matter. Facts doesn't matter in Trump world. The only thing that matters is narrative and storytelling. And Donald Trump just so happens to do an adequate job at that. With that being said, let's read off Donald Trump's latest Truth Social post with regard to this topic. Donald Trump writes, and I quote, "The only reason crime is somewhat down in Memphis is because the FBI and others in the federal government at my direction have been working there for 5 months on the absolutely terrible crime numbers. Likewise in Chicago and Los Angeles. But the real work by us has barely begun. That happens after we make the official announcement that we're coming, and when we do that, as we did in now very safe Washington, D.C., the no crime miracle begins. Only I can save them. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT." End quote. Okay, there's a lot to go through there, so we'll just take it one by one. Donald Trump is admitting in a way that crime is down in Memphis, Tennessee. So why would you need federal forces to come in if crime is down? Donald Trump says or claims that it's because he has already been there for 5 months with, I'm assuming, the FBI and Kash Patel. That is a sorry excuse. In general, what we know is that nationwide crime for decades has been going down. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but crime has not been going up. There is no reason to have to send federal troops in to control crime or augment the ability of local law enforcement to take care of crime. And then Donald Trump talks about Chicago and Los Angeles. I do want to point out that Donald Trump issued a threat to send troops to Chicago, but it hasn't happened. And part of that is because it's legally difficult for him to do so. He is running out of legal space to deploy the troops to Chicago. So what he's doing in the meantime is he's going to Republican friendly states such as Tennessee and asking the governor of Tennessee to ask him, Donald Trump, to send federal troops in. It's a way to achieve the same goal that he has of normalizing deployments. He wants to normalize troop deployments into different cities, specifically Democratic run cities. He wants to normalize that type of behavior. He can't do it with Chicago right now, but he can do it with Memphis, Tennessee. He can ask the governor of Tennessee to ask Donald Trump to send federal troops in so that it becomes normal to have these federal forces within the cities. So Donald Trump isn't yet done with Chicago. He is just warming up for it, and this is one of the ways he's doing it. And one last thing I want to point out on this topic. Donald Trump sending federal troops to different Democratic states and cities is something that is not what the party of small government would say. For years, the Republicans and MAGA have said that the government is the problem and that we should have a smaller government presence everywhere and allow the local authorities and local governments to take care of crimes and issues the way in which they want to. That has been the Republican Party story for years. But now Donald Trump is in power and he is expanding the power of the federal government by doing these unconstitutional deployments. This is straight out of a dictator's playbook. I want to point that out, and I also want to point out that Donald Trump and MAGA, they're the kings of projection. Anytime that they say something, just remember it, because you know they're going to do the same thing. Anytime that they accuse the Democrats of being for big government and they want to take over all the states and have like a nanny state, and that one of the things they used to say was that there were going to be death panels because of Obamacare, federally run death panels. All of that is projection, because now they're in power and all they want to do is secure more power. One of the ways that Donald Trump is doing this is by deploying federal troops to cities in which he has political opponents in. All right, so that's for that topic. The next topic, Jeffrey Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. I want to keep talking about Jeffrey Epstein as much as possible because there's a lot going on right now, guys, and we tend to lose focus on what really matters. And what really does matter is the Jeffrey Epstein files. In one of my last episodes, I started reviewing the documentation that was released by the House Oversight Committee. They had documents pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein that they requested from his estate. I went over the birthday book that Ghislaine Maxwell made for Jeffrey Epstein. Today I'm going to go over this non-prosecution agreement between the government and Jeffrey Epstein. A non-prosecution agreement is an agreement between a government body and the accused, and it allows the accused to avoid certain criminal charges in exchange for some conditions. So, for example, the government says, hey, give us dirt on these other folks and we'll lessen your sentence from life to 20 years in jail, for example. That is what we're looking at here. So I'll go over some of the main points. And the reason I want to go over this is because it gives us a better picture about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing and then how Trump may have been implicated in those activities. So we'll start on the first page here. In the first page, it appearing that the City of Palm Beach Police Department and the State Attorney's Office for the 15th Judicial Circuit Court in and for Palm Beach County have conducted an investigation into the conduct of Jeffrey Epstein. And then they go on to say, it appearing that the United States Attorney's Office and the Federal Bureau of Investigations have conducted their own investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's background and any offenses that may have been committed by Epstein against the United States from in or around 2001 through September 2007, including knowingly and willfully conspiring with others, known and unknown, to commit an offense against the United States, that is, to use a facility or means of interstate or foreign commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, or entice minor females to engage in prostitution, in violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Section blah, 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 blah. Knowingly and willfully conspiring with others, known and unknown, to travel in interstate commerce for the purpose of engaging in illicit sexual conduct as defined by 18 U.S.C. with minor females in violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Section blah blah. Using a facility or means of interstate or foreign commerce to knowingly persuade, induce, or entice minor females to engage in prostitution in violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Traveling in interstate commerce for the purpose of engaging in illicit sexual conduct as defined by 18 U.S.C. 2423 with minor females in violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Knowingly and in affecting interstate and foreign commerce, recruiting, enticing, and obtaining by any means a person, knowing that the person had not attained the age of 18 years and would be caused to engage in a commercial sex act as defined by 18 U.S.C. yada 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 yada. So these are the potential charges back then that Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to face. What do these charges tell us, this criminal activity? This tells us most likely that Jeffrey Epstein was a pimp for high value people such as Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, or other CEOs, government officials, and minor females were involved. So this is the way I see it now, and this is based on what I'm reading here and all the other documentation that I've seen. It hasn't been confirmed yet by the authorities, but by putting all these pieces together, we can get a picture of what was happening. So it looks like Jeffrey Epstein was a pimp and he recruited young women, specifically minor women, less than 18, to be prostitutes, and he would get his high value clients, people in places of high power, to pay him for the sexual services that his minor prostitutes would provide. And the charges would be pretty high for these types of exchanges because Jeffrey Epstein was also guaranteeing privacy. So what I'm seeing is that Jeffrey Epstein was this, I guess, charismatic figure and pimp who guaranteed his quote unquote friends in high places privacy when it came to prostitution with young women. It's pretty these are pretty bad crimes. These are awful, and there's I can see why it took a while for these documents to be released, because if you have people in high places, people like Donald Trump, people like Bill Clinton, CEOs, etc., I can see them working behind the scenes to bury this as much as possible. At least it's a good thing it's coming out. So that's what I'm seeing from the charges here, the picture of what Jeffrey Epstein did. And now how it implicates Donald Trump, if we go to page 5 here, or how it could implicate Donald Trump. By the way, I want to be very clear here. There is no solid evidence or confirmation from authorities that Donald Trump was involved with prostitution of minor women. That hasn't been confirmed yet. I am simply going through the documentation and making inferences based on what I'm reading and connecting the dots with pictures and other documents and communications between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. So on page 5, in consideration of Epstein's agreement to plead guilty, by the way, this is one of the things that Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to do to secure some agreements here. In consideration of Epstein's agreement to plead guilty and to provide compensation in a matter described above, if Epstein fulfills all of the terms and conditions of this agreement, the United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, including but not limited to Sarah Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Roth, or Nadia Marcinkova. Let's keep in mind there, folks, it says here included but not limited to. So there could be other co-conspirators. Continuing on further, upon execution of this agreement and a plea agreement with the state attorney's office, the federal grand jury investigation will be suspended and all pending federal grand jury subpoenas will be held in abeyance. That means basically suspension, unless and until the defendant violates the terms of this agreement. The defendant likewise agrees to withdraw his pending motion to intervene and to quash certain grand jury subpoenas. Both parties agree to maintain their evidence, specifically evidence from grand jury subpoenas. Both parties, so there's just kind of more administrative language there. The point is that part of this agreement is that Jeffrey Epstein would plead guilty in exchange for the government not prosecuting his co-conspirators. Was Donald Trump a co-conspirator? Right now, as I've said before, it hasn't been confirmed. But if we look at the birthday book in this picture, and I showed you guys this at last podcast episode, this is a picture of Jeffrey Epstein holding up a check signed by Donald Trump, and it's worth $22,500. And in the caption here, it says, Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women. Sells fully depreciated blank. And by the way, this is a redacted name. So this is a fully depreciated woman. That's what it is. To Donald Trump for $22,500. Showed early people skills too. Even though I handled the deal, I don't get any of the money or the girl. This is a check signed by Donald Trump, who paid $22,500 for a fully depreciated woman. If we connect the dots between this picture, these words, and what Jeffrey Epstein was accused of here in the non-prosecution agreement, it paints a pretty damning picture of what potentially Donald Trump was involved in with this. Let's go to another page of the birthday book. This is a letter sent from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein on his birthday. It says, there's a picture of a woman there. There must be more to life than having everything. And then Donald says, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey says, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Then Donald says, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do. Come to think of it, Donald says, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? And then Jeffrey says, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. And then Donald says, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Okay, may every day be another wonderful secret. What secrets are these guys talking about? The first thing that comes to mind is the prostitution secret. When I don't know what else it could be, given this evidence that I'm showing you, given this minor females and then co-conspirators and then the picture of the check and this letter. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed yet. I want to keep repeating that. But this does paint a pretty damning picture of Donald Trump and makes it more likely that Donald Trump was a co-conspirator, and that is why he wants to hide this information from the public. With that being said, those are the topics I wanted to cover today. I will see everyone tomorrow.